The morning bell rang and the crowded hallway filled with laughter, footsteps, and careless chatter. But amidst the chaos walked a girl who spoke less than anyone else. Her name was Alina. She was the type of girl most students overlooked. She wore simple clothes, carried her books close to her chest, and kept her head low as though the world was too heavy for her gaze to rise. Teachers noticed her grades, always perfect, but students noticed her silence, and in high school silence was often misunderstood as weakness. For weeks a group of boys, led by the arrogant football captain Darren, had made Alina their target. They teased her, shoved her books, and mocked her voice whenever she was forced to answer in class. But Alina never reacted. Her calm face seemed to swallow every insult like a stone dropped into a deep lake. They thought she was timid. What no one knew was that Alina's father, a retired military self-defense instructor, had trained her since childhood. Every evening at home, while the world thought she was buried in textbooks, she was actually practicing stances, blocks, joint locks, and strikes in the garage under her father's strict eyes. She had promised him she would never use those skills unless she truly had no choice. That morning, fate decided to test that promise. The hallway buzzed with energy between classes when Darren spotted Alina walking past the lockers. With his usual arrogance, he sneered and whispered something crude to his friends before stepping directly into her path. She tried to walk around him, but his arm shot out, blocking her way. "Hey, quiet mouse," he mocked loud enough for everyone to hear. "Don't you ever get tired of hiding behind those books?" Laughter erupted from his group. Alina remained calm, eyes steady but lips silent. She did not feed his ego with reaction. But Darren wasn't satisfied. The crowd was watching, and he wanted a show. His hand suddenly lashed out, striking her cheek with a sharp slap that echoed through the corridor. Gasps filled the air. A girl dropped her notebook. A teacher far down the hall began hurrying toward them. Alina's cheek stung, but her eyes did not water. Instead, something inside her, something she had held back for years, ignited. The promise to her father rang in her mind. "Only when you must, Alina. Never before. But if you must, then finish it." Her breath slowed, the world around her seeming to narrow until all she saw was Darren's smug face. He laughed at his own cruelty. But the laugh froze when Alina's hand shot out like lightning. She grabbed his wrist before he could pull it back. In one smooth motion, she twisted it into a joint lock so precise and brutal that Darren's knees buckled. A scream tore from his throat as pain ripped through his arm. Before anyone could comprehend, Alina shifted her weight, snapped the joint with a controlled force that bent his elbow in the wrong direction, and shoved him back against the lockers. The sound of the crack was undeniable. The entire hallway fell into stunned silence. Students stared with wide eyes, some covering their mouths, others frozen in disbelief. Darren, the untouchable bully, was on the floor clutching his arm, tears streaming down his face as he begged her to let go. Alina stood over him, calm and unshaken, her books still tucked in one arm, as if she had never lost control of herself. The teacher finally arrived, his eyes darting between the crying bully and the quiet girl who stood tall with an aura no one had ever seen before. Before he could speak, whispers filled the hall. She broke his arm. She didn't even blink. He slapped her and The story began to spread like wildfire. Alina lowered her gaze again, not because she was ashamed, but because she didn't need applause or validation. She knew what she had done and why. She had defended herself, nothing more. Yet at that moment, everyone else knew that the quiet girl they had ignored or mocked was not weak. She was powerful in ways they could not comprehend. The hallway that once echoed with laughter at her expense now pulsed with respect, fear, and awe. But what Alina didn't realize was that this single act was only the beginning. She had just shattered the balance of power in the school, and both students and teachers would be forced to see her differently. Some would admire her courage, others would fear her strength, and a few, like Darren's vengeful friends, would not forgive what she had done. The storm she had kept inside for so long had finally been unleashed, and it would change everything. Chapter 1 ends here with suspense, setting up for Chapter 2 where consequences, deeper challenges, and Alina's emotional journey unfold. Chapter 2. The weight of power's 5,000 words style condensed here but written in long flowing form. The nurse's office was crowded that afternoon. Darren's cries still echoed in people's ears as news of his broken elbow spread across the campus like wildfire. Teachers whispered about the incident in the faculty lounge, while students replayed it on their phones in hushed amazement. The quiet girl had snapped the arm of the most feared bully before the teacher even arrived. But Alina sat silently in the principal's office, her hands folded, her face expressionless. The principal stared at her across the desk, clearly torn between admiration and responsibility. "Alina, what you did was dangerous," he said carefully. "But I understand you were provoked." Her father was called to the office, and when he arrived, his eyes met hers with both pride and concern. He did not scold her. Instead, he placed a firm hand on her shoulder and told the principal, "My daughter defended herself. If she hadn't, who knows how far that boy would have gone." The principal sighed, knowing the truth. The surveillance cameras had captured the entire incident, leaving no room for Darren's lies. For once, the bully couldn't play victim. The school suspended him for violence and harassment, while Alina was given only a warning. But the real trial began after school. Students no longer ignored Alina in the hallways. Some approached her shyly, thanking her for standing up to Darren. Others kept their distance, whispering in fear about the way she had moved, as if she were some kind of fighter from an action movie. Alina, however, didn't bask in any of it. Inside, she felt a strange heaviness. She had kept her father's training a secret for years, believing she would never need it. But now everyone knew. Her quiet world had been shattered. Darren's friends didn't stay silent. A few of them confronted her outside the school, angry and vengeful. But when they tried to corner her, they quickly realized they were dealing with someone who was not afraid. Alina didn't need to fight them. Her presence, her calm gaze, and the memory of Darren's broken arm made them hesitate, their courage melting into fear. She walked past them without a word, her steps steady, her silence louder than any threat. At home, her father reminded her of the responsibility that came with strength. "Power isn't about proving yourself," he said. "It's about protecting what matters and knowing when to walk away." His words sank deep into her heart. Alina realized that she wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was setting an example for everyone who had ever felt small, weak, or voiceless. The bullies had ruled with fear, but now fear had changed sides. Days later, Darren returned to school with his arm in a sling, his arrogance replaced with bitterness. But when he saw Alina, he didn't speak. His eyes lowered and he turned away. The hallway that had once been his stage of cruelty now belonged to silence. The same silence that Alina had carried all along. She had not wanted this war, but in defending herself, she had transformed it into something bigger. She had shown every quiet soul that silence does not mean weakness, and that strength, when controlled, can command respect without a word. As she walked down the hallway, students moved aside, not out of fear, but out of a newfound respect. Alina didn't smile, didn't boast, and didn't need applause. She simply carried her books as always, her silence more powerful than ever before. She had become a symbol. The quiet girl who fought back, not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. And in doing so, she changed the story forever.